always said from the time I could talk that I was going to be a doctor. My father was a surgeon in Jacksonville, Florida. He unfortunately died when I was still a toddler, and I had determined at a very early age that I was going to be a doctor. My experience as an African American didn't begin when I went to college. It was a more prominent issue because I was recruited to Vassar when they wanted to have an African American student, so that clearly it was an issue. The students, in fact, came down ahead of time before it was agreed that I was going to go, because I had to agree and the school had to agree. And now it turns out these students had to agree because they wanted to be sure that, if I can mix my metaphors, the first man got on base. Yale Medical School was a different story, because one of my Vassar friends was also accepted. She not only was my Vassar friend and became my anatomy partner, and I was a little squeamish about having who I had as an anatomy partner. I was glad to have my friend from Vassar. But she also kind of gave me a home away from home, because her father was the master of one of the Yale colleges. And so I went over and had afternoon tea and this and that. And so it was that was a much easier transition than I would have expected. It wasn't a big deal being an African American at Yale. In the first place, nobody was much interested. It was very challenging. It was also wartime, and there were other things on their minds. But on the other hand, it may be that there was something about me that was different, because I had the experience at Vassar of being totally accepted, really had lots of friends, was well liked, and I have a little expression: anything that has happened is possible. And so they forgot about it. And if you're nervous and edgy about it, they're going to be edgy about it. So that was it. And it was worked out absolutely perfectly. And that opened up a whole new chapter in my life, which was the meeting, the romance, and the marrying of David Hamburg. And we have now been married over 60 years, I believe it is. And I think it's going to work out. It seems really good. It wasn't a very big deal to be an African American at Yale, but it was much more of a challenge to be a woman there. In medical school, I didn't notice this at Vassar because it was all women, but at medical school, a woman would, when a question was tossed out, would answer it. And it would be as if talking into the wind hadn't happened. Later on, a man would say the same thing, and they'd say, "God, John, that was so fabulous. That's really important, blah, blah, blah." And so I had this minor, if you will, crusade to help women to just hold their own, just to be an equal in the classroom. People are always interested in my responses as an African American. The fact is, my responses are not as an African American. They are as Betty Hamburg. And I don't go around all the time, thinking, well, now how do I feel about this as an African American? I don't, any more than I ask myself, how do I feel about that as having lived in New York and being a New Yorker? I mean, it just is there, but it's not determinative. It's not a litmus for people. It's just there. Yale School of Medicine was something that really changed my whole life because it taught me to be, I think the technical word is an autodidact. That means that you are your own teacher. And so I learned how to learn, and it was one of the most critical aspects, I think, of the experience there. Of course, I was learning medicine at that point, but everything I've learned from that point onward has always been heavily tinged with my taking a responsibility for finding out what I need to know and then how to learn it, and then applying myself to acquiring the necessary knowledge. And for Yale, I'm very grateful to Yale for that.